Hello everyone and welcome back to World of Warplanes, and today we're going to take a look at the DH-100 Vampire F1. This is a Tier 8 British fighter premium that you can earn through the Vampire Marathon mission in the tab over here. That but I don't have it because I already have the plane, so I got rid of it, but that's where you can unlock it. And yeah, we're going to get started with it. But before we do, I want to take a quick moment to say thank you for your community interaction in the last videos, namely the state of World of Warplanes. I got a lot of interesting feedback, and that's the whole reason I kind of wanted to do these videos is to have your guys' opinions on the plane that I'm reviewing or the matter that I'm talking about. I want to see if I'm alone in it, or I want community interaction. That's the main thing. So if you guys watch this video, please leave a comment down below. Let me know that you watched it and what you thought of it. Without further ado, let us get started. So first off, let us talk about the history of this plane. And as far as I'm aware, we're going to be able to take a look at what Wargaming says about the plane, but I also did some of my own research. I'm getting more proficient in these videos. Actually, I need to click on the plane. But yeah, I did some history digging, so there'll be some of that as well. So Wargaming claims that it was the first mass-produced modification of the DH 100 Vampire featured the Goblin 1 engine. It entered service in April 1945, and a total of 40 aircraft of the early F.1 series were built, but they did not see combat due to the end of World War II. Okay, so yeah, that gives you a pretty decent history overview of the F1 variant, but I wanted to do a little bit more digging and see exactly what this plane was capable of and what it was most well known for in history. And I've got a lot of that. So let's get started real quick. Originally, it was built for the Halford H1 turbojet engine, but there was like complications with it, and it was taking longer to develop and stuff. So it was later refitted and redesigned a little bit for the DH Goblin engine. Um, but yeah, it was delayed production for it to start. For they delayed it because of the engine, but they did get it, and it worked out pretty well. Um, it was originally designated as the DH-99, or the original nickname was the Spider Crab. Um, but the production variant was the Vampire, but originally it was the Spider Crab. Generally, planes of this era that used jet engines required two jet engines because they weren't super efficient, and planes like the Me-262, those were so crudely made that they could only fly for about 40 hours without before they would just not work anymore. So for efficiency's sake and also for safety's sake, you'd want to have more than one jet engine. But this Goblin engine actually was quite efficient and didn't really need to have a second engine. So yay! It was the first engine they could do that with. This Vampire was the second British jet in the RAF service. The first one being the Meteor, and of course, a Meteor had two jet engines. So yay, step up. Um, it first flew in September 20th of 1943, which was 6 months after the Meteor. Uh, and like I said already, it was the second British jet fighter. It was the first RAF fighter to fly over 500 miles per hour, which is pretty good. I'm not converting that to the metric system because I'm lazy. You guys can figure it out. um, it was a or there was a modification of the Vampire to be used on carriers, and that was called the DHC Vampire. It first took off and landed aboard the carrier HMS Ocean in December 3rd, 1945. It was the first jet used by the Royal Navy. It was highly successful in the export market with over 30 countries and air forces using and deploying the Vampire. There was an experimental version of the Vampire that set a world record for altitude reached in March 1948 at 59,446 feet, which is pretty impressive. Overall, we had 3,269 vampires built by just the UK, 1,067 were built under license, and it was in frontline fighter service in the RAF Air Force uh, until 1953. So, not a super long uh, service time, but the time that it did serve, it was highly successful. The last retired vampire in any Air Force anywhere was Switzerland in 1990. It was replaced by the Hunter and the Javelin by the RAF, and a large number of these aircraft still fly today, which is actually pretty interesting. A lot of them are still in highly superb condition, and there's over 100 in great condition around in museums around the world, which is pretty impressive. One last little interesting stat: this plane could be a night fighter variant. There was a lot of different variations of this plane, but it could hold up to 12,360 pounds of either fuel or bombs or ordnance of any kind. So, yeah, sometimes when you see the pictures, you'll see like a fuel tank underneath the wings on each wing. Just gives it extra range and stuff. Just an interesting thing to keep in mind. And that about covers it with the history. So anyway, I wanted to kind of buzz through that pretty fast. But there was a lot of history. If you guys do want to know more about the history, I found two really great sites for it. So I'll leave those in the description if you would like to see that. I may even post a video of the DH-100 flying. Oh, cat. Uh, DH-100 vampire flying. There's some pretty cool actual real life videos of it, so I might post that in there as well. But anyway, let us move on to the statistics. So, what I kind of want to do initially is just to see what Wargaming kind of says about the plane and see if maybe we could go off on it a little bit. They say that it's got good autocannon armament effective at medium range. It's got low survivability and a vulnerable engine. It's got high airspeed, accelerates quickly when boosting. And that's look a bold point they're making. So apparently it's got really good boost. It's got good maneuverability in horizontal turns, and it's effective in mid-altitude maneuvering combat. Overall, this seems like a pretty good summary, but let's break it down a little bit more. So I've made up a couple charts. If you've seen my TU1 review, I got new charts. So this may seem a little bit cluttered, but really the only thing we're looking at is how does the Vampire compare to other Tier 8 fighters. These are all the rest of the other Tier 8 fighters, and we break it down into maneuverability, airspeed, firepower, altitude, performance, and survivability. The Vampire is on the far left of each of these graphs, so it's pretty easy to compare it to the rest of the planes. So let us first start off with maneuverability. As you can see, the Vampire has a maneuverability rating. Oh, by the way, I got all these stats from the official Wargaming World of Warplanes website because in my hangar, the stats are changed based on what equipment I have on it, what crew skills I have, so it's not a very accurate representation. I pulled these stats straight from the Wargaming World of Warplanes website. So that's where I'm getting these stats from. But anyway, maneuverability, we can kind of see that the Vampire is right in the middle of the road. It's not tragic, but it's certainly not great. And that's kind of one of the misconceptions I had when I first got this plane. I thought it was supposed to be super maneuverable. It's really not. And the Spitfire is labeled in this gray, so the Spitfire is at like an 80 something. The Vampire is only like 64, 65, something like that. So it's not nearly maneuverable as a Spitfire, and you got to keep that in mind. What plane outmaneuvers a Spitfire? What is that plane? The Yak. Oh, Yak 15. Okay, well, I didn't quite realize the Yak 15 was more maneuverable than the Spitfire, but I guess it is. So yeah, you're not gonna be turn fighting with highly maneuverable planes at the tier. It's just not gonna happen. But at the same time, you're not tragically immaneuverable either. You can hold your own. Now, if we take a look at the airspeed, you're actually the best technically in this comparison. I don't necessarily agree with that because if we look at this, the J8M is on here in this light blue, and it's technically not the best. There's got to be some sort of a bug on their website because that doesn't seem right to me. But regardless, you're not going to keep up with the J8M. And, overall, your airspeed might be better than most of these planes. But in individual stats like boost or speed without it hitting the boost, stuff like that, you might not be the best. But overall, your stats are the best for airspeed. So that's one of those things I didn't really realize in it. It is fast and it's fairly maneuverable. So just keep that in mind. If we move on to firepower, kind of the same story. It's middle of the road. It's not great, but it's not bad either. It's basically right in the middle of the road. And I think that's going to be kind of our theme with this plane. It's not great, but it's not bad, and you can make it work. It's not like this plane doesn't really have those weaknesses that you have to try to cover up and protect. It just doesn't. It's basically well rounded in every regard. Next is altitude performance, and it's on the lower end, but with your decent boost and stuff, you can get up to pretty decent altitude. It doesn't do super well at high altitude, though. If you want a plane that does well at high altitude, you'd want to get something more like the J8M or the ME209. Something like that would just work a lot better than the Vampire. It is definitely near the lower end on the altitude performance. You do want to actually keep that in mind. You don't really want to be going up chasing bombers or heavy fighters at high altitude. They'll just tear you up. You lose a lot of control in this plane fairly quickly. Survivability, middle of the road again. It's got a rating of 11, like a whole lot of other planes in this comparison. So it's not tragic, but it's not excellent either. And with that, I think we've about done it with the comparison charts. What we basically can draw from this is it's pretty fast for being a fighter, and I can kind of vouch for that in my play testing with it. It does seem pretty fast. Maneuverability, it's definitely not bad. If you can see our chart, it is pretty high. So that's just one thing you gotta keep in mind. It's not bad at maneuverability, but it's not great either. You can make it work. And airspeed, it's not bad, but it's actually pretty good. It's really not bad. It's quite good. Um, you just have to keep that in mind. It's a very unique plane. It's got maneuverability and it's got airspeed. Not many planes can say that. So it causes this plane to play a little bit more differently than other planes. With that being said, let us get started on the equipment that I have set up for it. I got all my tier 8 premiums specialized, and I maxed out the equipment on all my tier 8 premiums. So this one will be a case where we're going to have maxed out stats for it. And as you can see, immediately you don't get any forward firing weapon um, equipment modules, and that's kind of sad. Actually, one thing I want to say beforehand, you do get 420s, so that's the armament that this plane has. They're very good 20s. They're not super long range guns, but they hit pretty hard and pretty consistent. But they aren't the most powerful 20s that I've seen. Um, so yeah, there's that. But anyway, back to the equipment. You don't get any forward firing weapon slots, so you don't get to put uh, gas operated action on this plane, which I probably would have. Uh, but because of that, we're going to just put an accuracy thing on there because I like having extra accuracy. Alternatively, what could we have done? Crew resistant to injuries, and increased visibility, decreased range at which the aircraft is detected by enemy planes. Eh. I just, yeah, I just prefer having the accuracy. So that's what I did. Now, the rest of this, I set this plane up based on the fact that it was good at maneuverability and airspeed. So I kind of went with both. I did a mixed setup because it's good at both. So amplify the maneuverability a little bit, amplify the airspeed a little bit, and you get a really great plane. I don't think it's really one of those planes that you want to focus on maneuverability or airspeed. If you want to do one or the other, you might want to choose something like the J8M for airspeed or the ME209 for airspeed, or maybe do the Spit 14 for maneuverability or the Yak 15 for maneuverability. This plane is not like that. It's good at both. And so, because of that, you want to amplify both. You don't want to try to force it into a position in only airspeed or only maneuverability because there's other planes that are better than that or better than you at that. So, this plane is just good at both. You want to amplify both. So, with that in mind, I went with the lightweight wing frame. Bonus characteristics, I didn't really care too much about the bonus characteristics on that one. For this one, the bonus characteristics you do want to and should keep in mind. I re-rolled until I got a 10% chance to cause fire and 15% chance of inflicting critical damage. That's just huge. Like when you're causing fires more frequently and doing more crit damage, you're gonna do a lot. So I would re-roll until you got either 15% fire, 10% crit, or 10% fire, 15% crit. I just think it's really useful. This one I didn't really care that much. This one we went with cruise speed and acceleration while diving. So there's that. It decreases maneuverability a little bit, but it increases the speed a little bit more. And our other equipment modules will balance that out. They'll counteract it, so we don't have to worry about that as much. Again, didn't really care that much about the bonus characteristics because it's like 1% here, 2% there. Just didn't care that much. Um, so there's that. Then we went with lightweight power unit for increased maneuverability. Reduces the engine's resistance to crit damage, but whatever. Again, didn't care about the bonus characteristics on this equipment module. Then I also went with Boost Efficiency 1, which is a gas turbine, and it basically increases the acceleration with boost active and increases the max speed with boost active. I feel like the boost is really good on this plane, so I wanted to amplify the efficiency of it. You do lose a lot of availability of the engine, but meh. Like if you're able to get to a higher speed more consistently, then you're gonna be sitting pretty good. And I did actually re-roll until I got the 15% engine cooldown rate because if we lose our boost availability, at least we can get our boost back quickly by having it like set up like this. For consumables, it's just kind of standard. We went with the first aid kit, control surface trim. Alternatively, you could do pneumatic control assist, but you just have to realize that if your wings get shot, you're going to be really in a bad situation. So I prefer having my wings fixed at all times, but if you wanted to be able to outturn a Spitfire, outturn a Yak 15, maybe not player controlled, but give yourself more of a chance of outturning them, using the pneumatic control assist may actually be quite beneficial. Again, it's up to you. You get two engine slots, thus amplifying the fact that you are actually quite fast for a fighter, and you're not terrible at maneuverability either. So they went with two engine slots. I guess you can also kind of see that in the equipment slots, right? They say, it's good at speeding and maneuvering. So we're going to give you 2 engine and 2 airframe. They're kind of like saying, you know, amplify those benefits, which makes a lot of sense. For this, you get a lot of options, right? You can either do bottle of manual restart, which I highly recommend. That one, it's kind of not debatable because you have this piece of equipment that. Wait, no, what one was it? Not that. Not that. Was it this one? Yeah, this one. We've weakened the engine's resistance to critical damage, so you're going to lose your engine a lot. So I feel like the manual restarter is mandatory for this plane. The second one, it's up to you. Um, I went with this, but honestly, the engine cooling might be more beneficial. In fact, I'm going to change it right now because I think engine cooling is more useful. I was kind of experimenting to see if this improved mixture control is actually useful, but so you get 10 seconds, right? It cool it improves cooldown rate by 5 times for 10 seconds, or you can just hold the boost while it's active. Because you only get like 5 seconds of boost, you're definitely just going to hold the boost down when you have it, but you get 10 seconds of boost. You're basically doubling your amount of boost when you have this active, and you could really book it. You know, you could really move around the battlefield pretty fast. You can escape anything. So I think having it there just for an emergency boost is useful. If you get yourself into a sticky situation, activate it, full boost, get the heck away from there. And finally, universal ammo. Don't use gold. There's no point. It's not really worth it unless you've earned it. But meh. Pilot. Let's do pilot skills. Why not? Um. Oh, this is not my normal setup. Well, generally I go marksman 1, marksman 2, but I guess because I have an equipment module that already increases my maneuverability or increases my accuracy, I decided to only do one of this and increase maneuverability a little bit more. So this increases the efficiency of equipment maneuverability, so that's pretty cool and gives an extra 2%. Maybe I would redo it, but eh, I don't know. Another thing that might be really useful is Engine Guru 1 and 2. Hmm. You know, these guns are already pretty accurate, and I already put an equipment module to increase accuracy. Just out of curiosity, let me check it. This increases it by 14%. Yeah, that's not too bad. This increases it by what? 5%, and this one does. Um, okay, that is really useful though. I don't know. Alright, here's what I'm going to say. You could have it set up like this, where you do Marksman 1, Marksman 2, Aerobatics Expert, and Aerodynamics Expert. That does work. Alternatively, you could say the guns are already pretty accurate, and because you have equipment on already, you could try to amplify the effects of the engine, and by doing this. But it is only increasing it by 2%, but it stacks with this, so it's 3% there, 2% there. I'm really thinking about this, guys. The first one gives you 3% thrust for only 2 skill points. The second one gives you 2% engine thrust for 3 points. That seems a little pricey to me. Unless you want to go for a truly only speed build, I don't think it's actually beneficial. Instead, okay, this is my highest priority, or this is probably the best way you want to go about doing this. You'd go Marksman 1, Engine Guru 1, because you're both you having that little bit of accuracy could be useful, and a little bit of engine thrust would be useful. I would not go for engine guru 2 because unless you're truly only a turn and burn fighter, it doesn't really seem all that beneficial. So skip the engine guru, and because it's 3, it costs 3, so you're spending 5 skill points on that. Unless you're a true boom and zoom aircraft, it's not necessarily the best way to go. So I would go marksman 1, engine guru 1, aerodynamics expert, aerobatics expert, and if for some crazy reason you have more skill points, work up towards resilience. Resilience is always a useful skill. Although, let's see. Yeah, nah, that's not really useful. What does this one do? Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, that's kind of what I would go. Maybe marksman 1, marksman 2. Marksman 2 is pretty useful because it gives you 10% accuracy moving target. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of options with this one because it's both an airplane, or it's good at airspeed and maneuverability, so you can kind of set it up that way. Having more accuracy when firing at moving targets, that's just so useful. That's why I love Marksman 1 and Marksman 2 so much. It's just so useful. So I'll probably still go Marksman 1, Marksman 2, Engine Guru 1, Aerodynamics Expert, and Aerobatics Expert. That's probably where you're going to use your skills the most. That's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If you have more than 11 skill pilot, you know, great for you, but I think those are your best bets for this plane. Wow, that was long-winded, but I think it was important. One last thing, this is the paint scheme and the emblem and the nose art that comes with it once you unlock this plane. So just in case you want to see that, there's a bite me on there. This plane does look so cool. It really does. I have one bomb marking, but as you know, if you need one more ground target to flip a sector, it's useful. So anyway, with that being said, I've got a pretty good game lined up for you. It took me quite a while to get a game quite like this, so I hope you guys enjoy the battle. With that being said, I will see you in the replay. Be ready. And welcome to the replay. So here we go. We're on a random map. But yeah, the things to keep in mind, kind of notice the airspeed that we have in this plane and also the maneuverability. Looks like we got a sound bug right now. There's no more sound. Either that or it's the replay screwing up, but it's probably the replay bug, if I'm honest. So anyway, let me just see if the volume is on. It says the volume's on, so whatever. The first thing we're going to do on this particular one, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I really don't. But I'm kind of just flying straight. Alright, we're going to pull back. I think I'm just going to go to the airstrip. I don't know if that was because I was AFK or not. But in this particular battle, if your goal here is to win, the military base, the rocket base, is the most important. Because it really is the most dangerous. But I think what I was going for here is just a high score. So I'm just going to try to defend this airfield for the entirety of the game and just farm up a good score. Plus, I don't think there was really a whole lot of threats on the enemy team. So I'm like, well, I don't think we're going to lose this battle. It doesn't really seem like it's going to be a battle where we are going to lose. So I'm just going to try to get a good score, and we're just going to defend the airfield the whole time. So as you can see, I am out-turning this ME-209, but not quickly. You know, I will get on its tail, but not super fast. I did get to the sector pretty quickly. Well, I've got 6 seconds of boost. Okay, well, either I wasn't fully specialized or something was different, but this plane, you know, it does both, and that's something that it's kind of hard to get used to. One thing you really have to think about when you're flying this particular plane is because you don't have the best maneuverability, but you do have good maneuverability, It's same with the airspeed. You don't have great airspeed, especially compared to like heavy fighters and multi-rolls and stuff. You're gonna be outsped by other things. You're not the most speedy plane at this tier, but you're also not the worst. That generally means that no matter who you're up against, you're gonna have either a maneuverability advantage or a speed advantage. So you're constantly thinking, is the best approach in this engagement to outturn him or outspeed him? And, you know, this 209, I wouldn't really want to try to outspeed him because, well, he's pretty fast. I'd want to try to outturn him. He has pretty good maneuverability, but we have slightly better. That's our little bit of an advantage. So that's really what you have to do when you're using this plane. One other thing to know, the guns don't have the greatest range, so you do have to get fairly close to your target. But having good airspeed and having decent maneuverability allows you to do that more frequently. I've noticed that these guns don't kill as fast as I'd like, but at the same time they are really good guns, and you do have excellent airspeed and very good maneuverability. So you're kind of like that double-edged sword. This F-84, I don't want him to rocket me. Or, that's 94, isn't it? Yeah. The F-94, I don't want him to shoot me with his rockets. And I'm going to outturn him. Absolutely no problem. So I'm going to pull up on his tail and take him out. That's all we have to do. We see an Su-9 coming in again, so we're going to go up after him. We're about to lose the airfield, but honestly, I don't really care. I want the battle to last longer, so if they take the airfield, so be it. I'm going after the attacker. Now, the attacker is an interesting plane because it is up-tiered you. It's got really good maneuverability, and it's pretty fast compared to the vampire. So, it might outturn you, and it probably will outspeed you, but honestly, you'll probably have a better bet trying to outturn it because you are a slower plane than. I don't really know. The attacker is kind of like your equal, I guess. It does play very similarly to an attacker, so if you like the attacker, this vampire is probably for you. It feels like that, because the attacker's got good maneuverability, so I'd say take away a little bit of the maneuverability on the attacker, but give it just a little bit more speed, tier for tier, and that's kind of what you get in this plane. It's pretty similar to the attacker, though, I think. So, it's got a very similar play style. So, anywho's, we're going to take that out. They did take the sector, but I don't really care. I'm just going to keep spinning around here until I flip it back. So, if there was no targets here, then staying here wouldn't really be beneficial. But the enemies are dead set on taking this sector, so, you know, staying here isn't a bad idea. The worst thing about this plane is, well, any plane really, is getting your tail wing knocked out. So having the control surface trim for when your tail wing gets knocked out is probably the most important. If your wings get hit, it's not as big of a deal because it just reduces your roll rate, which is meh. Like, it kind of sucks sometimes, but you can still maneuver, you know. So saving the control trim for just when your tail wing gets knocked out is probably your best bet. We just lost the command center though, and they have the military base. So this is getting a little bit spicy. Now they've got 4 sectors. I need to stop trying to farm points here and try to make a comeback in sectors. Obviously, we're still ahead in points, so it's not imperative that we take it immediately. But what is imperative is that we don't lose the airfield, because if we lose the airfield, we will have supremacy on us, and that's really not ideal. But we need to take something because this is a little bit dicey. So we came over, Carter and I came over, and we took the military base. So good stuff, good stuff. Now that we have two sectors, yes, we're still behind in sectors, but we're still ahead in points. So my goal right now is just to make the battle last as long as possible. So I'm not going to really deal with much of anything right now. I'm going to see if I can squall this F2H and wait 4 seconds for him to get squalled. That's why I'm not firing my guns. But because he was on fire, he died anyway. Big shame, because we're gonna have to deal with that F2H later. But it is what it is. As we can see, it is squall line now. So my goal right now is to prevent them from flipping the airfield, but squall them as fast as possible. Um, I see an F-94 and it's quite dangerous. It's basically the biggest threat, but I've got somebody on my tail. It is squall line, so I don't want to die. I'm going to try to dodge, dip, weave, and try to live. I think Carter's trying to help me here, but it's pretty tricky right now. He's probably got a lot of guys on his tail as well. This is not exactly an ideal situation, but we'll see what we can do. He's got somebody on his tail, so we're going to flip around and help him out. MA209, that's been right near us the entire battle. It's good that we squalled him, because it seemed like he kind of wanted us dead. So that's important. They still have 4 sectors, and now they're ahead on points. So this is getting to be quite dicey. But they still need 250 points to win. So we still have time. It's not like we're terrified. But we do need to try to flip something now, because if we don't, we're going to be in a world of pain here in a second. So I'm trying to flip this airstrip as quickly as I can. Carter's coming back to try to help, because we do need to flip something. We still have the military base, which is very important, because military bases win battles. They really do. I don't think we've gotten shot down once this entire battle, which is pretty crazy. The F-94 is still alive? Oh no. Well, that's why we needed to take him out earlier, so we don't have to deal with him now. So we're going to finish what we were supposed to finish earlier and take him out. There we go. He's gone. Whoa! Almost rammed him. We're good though. As you can see, we're actually working quite well this battle. We're working together, covering each other's tails. Without him, I would not have made it out of that situation. Without me, he would not have made it out of that situation. So we definitely watched each other's backs in that battle, and it turned out pretty good. We got an attacker charging us again. Basically are equal, just one tier higher. I'm going to try to outturn him, because I feel like... but he is outturning us, so I don't really know what to do against this attacker. This attacker is a tier higher. He's got good maneuverability, excellent guns, and because he's a tier higher, he probably has better airspeed than us as well. So it's a little bit tricky, but it is a bot, so we're kind of sort of outplaying him eventually. We're getting decent shots on him. Flipping around, and boom, we got him. So as you can see, maneuverability is probably your best bet. If that was a human, I don't know if you'd be able to outplay an attacker. You'd have to hope that the player on the enemy team wasn't super great, because they could probably outdo you. They probably have better maneuverability than you and better airspeed because of their setups. But in that particular case, we were okay. So the battle is still not going super well for us. They just flipped the military base. I was caring too much about getting a score, which we did. We did get a good score, but it did cost us the game. But honestly, I'm not too concerned about it, because this battle, my goal here and there was to try to get a 20k game. I was really struggling to get a 20k game in this plane. So I didn't really care if it was going to be a win or a loss. I really, really wanted it to just be an even battle as long as possible. This does bring up an interesting point, though. If you guys saw my State of World Warplanes thing, you'll know that I wanted the squall line to come earlier, or for the battle to last a little bit longer. If we had increased the point count by 100, like I had suggested in that video, we could have won by squalling the enemy. Even though we were down on planes, I think it was a 2v3, I could have done it because they really only had GA left. I could have won it, and I really want those kind of battles again. So that is a perfect example of increasing the timer would be amazing. But anyway, let's get back to the point. That was a 21,000 personal point game. That was really quite good. I was flying my premiums this day because I had premium account, so I wanted to try to make a lot of credits because I needed a lot of credits. And as you can see, 330,000 credits. That's not bad. That's exactly what you want from the plane. You want it to be a moneymaker, and it most certainly is a moneymaker. So, with that being said, do I think this plane is worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. Uh, is it as good as people say it is? No, it's really not. People overhype it, but because it's really good in airspeed and maneuverability, you can usually get pounce. You can outplay somebody. So, yeah, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave comments down below. I always like to read those. Um, and yeah, just this is a fun plane. Just you have to realize that because you have really good airspeed and maneuverability, you have to choose at what points can you outturn and which points can you outspeed your opponents. With that being said, with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.